Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Acts of the Apostles. We're in the middle of Acts chapter 16 on Paul's second missionary journey. He's just received the vision of the man of Macedonia saying, "Come over here and help us." So the missionary party set sail, was across the Aegean to Macedonia, or northern Greece. We'll pick up the reading at verse 11. From Troas we put to sea, we sailed straight for Samothrace, and the next day we went on to Neapolis. From there we traveled to Philippi, a Roman colony, and the leading city of that district of Macedonia. We stayed there for several days. So the first stop in Macedonia is the great city of Philippi. Now when they landed on the shores of Macedonia, they got on what was called the Egnatian Way. That is the great Roman road that connected the east and the west of Macedonia. It traveled across the province from the Aegean Sea on the east to the Adriatic Sea on the west. So Paul simply travels that road and comes first to the city of Philippi. Great city. Luke says it's the leading city of the district. It's also a Roman colony. That is, most of the citizens are Roman citizens, and the constitution of the city is modeled after the constitution of Rome itself. The people in Philippi are very proud that they are Roman. That will come up later in the story. But anyway, they come to Philippi. They stay there for several days. Now on the Sabbath, we went outside the city gate to the river, where we expected to find a place of prayer. We sat down and began to speak to the women who had gathered there. Now you recall that when Paul would go to a new city, he always began his ministry in the synagogue, but not in Philippi. The reason is there is no synagogue in Philippi. The Jewish community is so small, it does not merit a synagogue. Now that means it's very small. All that was required to establish a synagogue was the presence of 10 adult men. But obviously there were not 10 adult Jewish men in the city of Philippi. So instead what they have is a place to gather for prayer. They can have a prayer meeting place, just not a synagogue. So that's what Paul looks for. And they find it down by the river. That's why it says they speak to the women. We don't know how many women were there, but we know there's very few men, obviously. Now, one of those who listened to us was a woman from the city of Thyatira named Lydia. She was a dealer in purple cloth. Lydia had recently, it seems, migrated to Philippi from Thyatira, which is over in Asia Minor. And it says she's a dealer in purple cloth. Now, purple cloth is a luxury item. Only the very rich could afford it. That indicates Lydia is a rather successful businesswoman. She heads her own household, which probably means her husband is deceased. At some point, she has, for a business venture, moved to the city of Philippi. She seems to be economically well off. She's probably originally a Gentile. Her name seems to suggest that. It's not a Jewish name. So either she is a convert to Judaism or she is a Gentile God-fearer, but she is attached to the place of prayer. She's a worshiper of God. The Lord opens her heart. She responds to Paul's message. She believes. And she and the members of her household were baptized. This is very familiar to Cornelius, the Roman centurion that Peter went to so many years before. When he believed, all his household believed. So Lydia is the head of her household, which would not only include her family, but also any servants attached and those who are connected with her in her business. They all are baptized, becoming the first converts in Philippi, in the district of Macedonia. She invited us to her home. "If you consider me a believer in the Lord," she said, "come and stay at my house." And so she persuaded us. And so she offers a place for Paul and the missionary party. That, of course, is Luke, Silas, and Timothy, a place to stay while they're in Philippi, and also a place for the church to meet. You remember, in these early days, the church is always house churches. And so Lydia's home becomes the first church in Philippi. They continue to go to the place of prayer each Sabbath, and they continue to evangelize in the city through their contacts. So a wonderful church is beginning to be established in the city of Philippi. Now we know that later, Paul will write one of his letters to the Philippians, which is to this church. And we will know from that letter that he has a very special affection and love for the believers in Philippi. Obviously, he had a great relationship with them. But anyway, the church gets started through Lydia's house and her household and begins to spread. Now, in our next session together, which we'll look at next time, we're going to see a notable miracle that occurs, which spurs the growth of the church, but also causes some persecution to come Paul's way. But we'll see that next time. Hope you have a great day today, and I'll see you for our next session of our 5-minute Bible study in the Acts of the Apostles.